Educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast, where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
I thank y'all very much for tuning in today. I have the pleasure of interviewing someone who is like 100 hours ahead of me today, what it feels like. She is a burnout prevention coach and international speaker. She has been an entrepreneur for over 10 years and was forced to shut down her business due to burnout in 2019. And some of you who know me personally, you know what I went through back in 2008, 2009. After a 2-year recovery journey, she now teaches workshops around the world and helps busy leaders create time, energy, and joy. Life should be easier from what we make it, so let's retain our brains to move away from overwhelm and towards to a more efficient and joyous life. A lot of us are looking for that. Sometimes we don't know where to find it, and we hope that Annika can help us today. Annika, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Maurice. I'm excited to be here.
So listen, we all have a 9-to-5. And those of us that are entrepreneurs, sometimes we have an 80 to 120. Sometimes it feels as though we use up every single moment of the day. Our brain never shuts off. So a lot of us are really busy and whatever we're doing, whether it's our career, family, whatever it is. But how are we supposed to find time for ourselves if we're always, quote unquote, busy?
That's a really great question, Maurice, and it is one that I get a lot. How do we find time for ourselves when we are so busy? What I would say to that is your brain actually needs downtime. Mm-hmm. So the reason why you feel so busy is because you don't give yourself enough downtime. Mm-hmm. And if you can take 5 or 10 minutes, just little increments throughout the day to give your brain a chance to calm down, process what's just happened, you actually find you get less busy. So the secret to finding time for yourself is to actually take the time and you'll find that you get less busy as you go around, because busy is actually, it's a feeling. Mm-hmm. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, but it's a feeling, and it's possible to get a lot done, but be calm and energized and able to just keep going without being stressed and panicked and exhausted and busy, if that makes sense.
So a lot of us here, in order for you to reach your dreams, to get to that destination, you have to put in the time, the energy, the hours, the brain power, whatever it is. So how do we overcome that? Because we're driven, a lot of us, we use that word a lot, driven, and so in that being driven, we don't find the time because so for me I'm 48 years old. If I start my company today, I might feel as though that I'm behind the 8 ball. I can't, I want to go on trips. I want to buy a yacht. I want to, those type of things, so I am putting myself or I'm diving all the way in to what my destination is, but I still don't have the time, so how do I overcome the burnout perspective on that?
Yeah. So I think you're absolutely right. When we're starting a business, especially in those early stages, we're told we need to just throw everything at it. And we're often juggling, full-time work at the same time. And maybe it's a side hustle. We've got families. So every business goes through a phase, especially in those first couple of years, where you do need to give it everything. And you do need to throw everything at it in order to get to that point of critical mass where it can start to run on its own a little bit more, and you can get some of that work-life balance back. Mm-hmm. But what I found within that is 2 things. One is that resource is limited. That ability that you have to throw everything at it, that is a finite resource. And at some point you will run out. And so what you want to do is you want to try and stretch that resource out as much as possible by keeping yourself topped up in little doses. So that's what I was talking about before around the taking little breaks. I'm not talking like let's go away on a 2-week vacation or it's turn off the emails after 8 p.m. at night. If it's not been dealt with by 8 p.m., put it down. It can wait till the morning. Those sorts of little moments of respite are actually what keeps you going for longer. So a practice that I've implemented for myself is actually at the end of every task, taking like a 5-minute break, like stop, walk away from the computer, leave your phone, go for a quick walk, a quick stretch, even if it's just like to grab a cup of coffee and come back. But that little moment actually means that if you keep doing that throughout the day, you end the day a lot less exhausted than if you just keep going and you just move immediately to the next task, immediately to the next task. So giving yourself those little moments is huge for being able to sustain that energy.
So a lot of times we don't understand what our resources really are. That is very interesting that you said that, because we rely on ourselves so much. As I talked to you earlier about myself, one-man band, but I do have other people. I have outsourced some things, all that type of stuff. But we're not always aware of what resources we have to help us cope with or deal with the overwhelm, the burnout, things like that. And sometimes we don't understand the questions that we need to ask ourselves. So how would you suggest for someone to overcome those insecurities to ask the right question?
Are we talking in terms of I've got too many things to do and not enough time to get it done?
Yes.
How do I know what questions I can even ask myself? I mean, from a business perspective, there's what is my hourly rate versus someone else's hourly rate, and kind of looking at it from that analytical business perspective and going, is this worth my time? And if it will take someone, 4 times as long to do it, but I can pay them, a fraction of what it costs me to do it, then that's still worth it. So getting, I guess, zooming out away from the emotion and the overwhelm and going, what is everything that I've got on my plate? And if I put the overwhelm aside for a minute and like put on my CEO hat and go, all right, I'm a CEO of a business. I've got a lot on my plate. I've got my family commitments. I've got my job, and I've got this business. What have I got to do? And just delegating it out in that way and going, all right, this thing just isn't a priority right now. Or this thing, someone else can do that. And you can do that across all parts of your life. So you can do that in your home life, and in your relationships, and do an assessment of, who are all of the people in my life right now? And are they people that are actually good for me right now? Do I actually have the capacity to show up for everyone that I think I need to? Maybe you take a step back from family relationships or from acquaintances that you don't see that often. Maybe take a rain check for a little while. And the same at home. There's so many things that you can do in your home to make life easier so that you have more headspace and have more capacity to more resources to focus on what needs to get done and the stuff that only you can do.
So a lot of times, because we are emotionally attached, we don't let go. That because sometimes physically you can't help it. You burnt out. Physically you can't move, right? But the emotional attachment, sometimes it does not allow us to let go. We don't understand that time frame or whatever. So how can we become more emotionally intelligent, or emotionally intelligent? I can't figure out another way to say it right now.
Or maybe emotionally aware.
Right.
How do we stay aware of what's going on with ourselves and why we can't let go? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah. Look, I would say a big part of that is giving yourself space and time to actually figure out what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the biggest things with burnout and with busyness is our brain switches into a gear where it is so convinced that everything is a threat and we just have to operate on adrenaline and on caffeine, and we just have to survive.
Right.
Just keep going.
Right.
And so what then happens is we really, really resist just sitting and breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that we can give ourselves moments of time where we can just sit and breathe, the more we actually come face to face with our emotions a little bit more. And that can be such an uncomfortable thing to do. And so I always recommend just start small, like put a timer, give yourself like a minute, 2 minutes, maybe for the length of time it takes you to drink tea or coffee, and then just kind of scale it up from there. But yeah, just be aware that in order to process some of this emotional attachment to what's going on, and you're going to need to give your brain a chance to come out of fight and flight response, which is where you're in when you're so busy, and remind yourself. I like to say, there's no tigers. The world's not going to end right this instant. I'm not going to be attacked. Okay, just take a breath.
So talking about awareness, when did you find out that you were experiencing burnout? Because a lot of times we don't know exactly what that looks like unless we're laid on a hospital stretcher somewhere, because sometimes we find out too late. So how were you able to acknowledge the burnout and overcome that?
Yeah, look, unfortunately for myself, I also didn't find out until it was too late. I woke up one day and my body just went, I can't do this anymore. Like I'm done. And so I went through the 2 months of bed rest, the 2 years of making progress, falling back, and just putting yourself back together and understanding how to get things done again without slipping back into that hyper busy mode. But I find that it does come and go. As you go into busyness and you go, oh, I'm pushing a little too hard. So some of the symptoms and some of the things that I look out for now is, how is my creative thinking? Like if I need to do creative work, whether it's, writing some marketing or, delivering a service for someone, if I'm just staring blankly at the screen and going, come on, brain, like, come on, why are you not working? That can be a sign of burnout if that's happening consistently. If you're feeling like the world is moving so quickly around you and you're stuck in the mud, you're just moving in slow motion, trying to, and you never used to be that way.
Right.
And I think that's that disparity is when you realize, what's happened to me? Why am I not as fast and as onto it? Why can I not make decisions as quickly? And why do little things knock me back so much quicker than they used to? Those are the things in the entrepreneurial space that I find are really good indicators of, hey, I think you're pushing the edge of burnout and we need to reel it in.
I think you said a mouthful because if you look at or pay attention to social media, which a lot of us do, and a lot of us are trying to recreate what someone else has done. We're comparing ourselves in certain situations to other entrepreneurs or even someone who's sitting in the cubicle or seat next to us at our 9 to 5. We want to compare ourselves, and then it doesn't help when our managers or our supervisors say, hey, be like this person, be like that person. Why don't you become duplicatable so someone else can follow your lead or whatever it might be? And so now we put ourselves in a position where we're not necessarily happy. We're not having the fullness of life. And I think that's one of the things that I know for myself, how I burnt out because I was too caught up in what everybody else was doing, and trying to get to a life that I thought I wanted, which I really didn't, but, it's something that because I was looking at someone else. So how can we pull back the reins a little bit, look back in the mirror and say, hey, you know what? This is not me. How do I stay genuine and authentic to myself in that situation?
I love that question, Maurice. How do I stay genuine and authentic to myself in that situation? The reason I love it so much is because my company is called My Joyous Life.
Mm-hmm.
And the one of the key components of burnout prevention is joy. It's about doing things that are joyful for you,
Mm-hmm.
because those are the things that will energize you and will allow you to keep going when life isn't quite how you'd like it. So being able to find little things in your life that bring you joy. And I've got a whole resource on like where in your life you could find joy, what sections to look at.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole point is, you don't have to quit your job and move to Bali. You can like that'd be great,
Right,
but
right.
in reality, there's joy in the here and now. You have things in life that you can be joyful about, and you
Mm-hmm.
can choose to prioritize those while you have the hectic and the less than ideal situations.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of what allows you to just be really true to yourself, honor yourself, and doing that also keeps you away from burnout.
So you have something on your website. It's the free 5-day guide. So what does that entail? You know, because I did download it. I have it right here in my email. So can you explain to the audience, the purpose of the 5-day guide and why would they be interested in something like that?
Yeah, sure. So the 5-day guide, it's called Burnout Rescue.
Mm-hmm.
So it's designed to be that, hey, I'm feeling burned out, or I might be burned out. I'm not sure, but I know something needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
And it's designed to give you across the 5 days little things that you can do in each of the key areas of your life. So what can you do at work to prevent burnout? What can you do at home to prevent burnout? What
Mm-hmm.
can you do within joy to prevent burnout? So I touch on, what the different elements are of joy and how you can
Mm-hmm.
integrate those. And so the reason why it's 5 days is because I could give you a list of 20 things to do, but realistically, you're busy and you're not going to do half of them. So if I spread it out over 5 days and give you little tidbits here and there, give you some
Mm-hmm.
context on what's actually going on in your brain, because there's a really fascinating psychology behind burnout as well,
Mm-hmm.
of what actually happens in your brain that you're constantly looking for threats,
Mm-hmm.
and how that leads to burnout, because society now is built to keep you in that threat space. So I touch on that as well, just to help you understand what's going on, because I think when you know why you're feeling so busy and so
Mm-hmm.
panicked all the time, it becomes easier to step back from it, and it becomes easier to step out of it.
So a few moments ago, I did mention, and I don't mean to go back because something else just popped in my head.
Yeah,
A
please.
lot of times, see, I had mentioned about being duplicatable in your business, or in your career, whatever it might be. But a lot of times we don't realize how much pressure we receive from our family members in that space too. Because I know for myself, um, it's just my mom, my brother, and I. So I saw how hard she worked, and I look at her now where she is totally burnt out. Like she's now, granted, we're older, whatever, but I see um, the results of that hard work. We're trying to raise 2 boys, by herself, all that type of stuff. And so now she's tired or whatever else. And I know for myself, I don't want to be that in that space at her age. I want to be, so now I'm pushing, I'm pushing, I'm pushing, I'm pushing. So how can I find joy even in that? Or how can I find respite even in that space? Because there's a lot of things that, because we're pushing so hard, we want a better life for our family members. We want a better life for our mamas, things like that, or our dads, that, hey, we're pushing so hard that, and looking at that, again, that end goal, we don't understand the little parts that we can enjoy during the journey. So how important is that for us to find in that space?
Yeah, it's incredibly important. It's, so many of us are so committed to supporting our family, to making a better life for ourselves and the people that we care about. And, whether that's supporting financially or providing, emotional support, physical support, whatever that may look like, it's a very, very common thing that we kind of feel like we're in this alone and it's all on us. If I don't do it, it won't get done. And there will be consequences, and the people that I love will pay the consequences for that. And so the thing I say to that is, remember that it's a marathon, not a sprint. So you throwing 110% at this for 2 years or however long is only going to result in you paying you and your loved ones paying the price for that, 2-3 years from now. Whereas if you can teach yourself the healthy habits now, where you're giving 80% and you're keeping, or 90%, and you're keeping 10% for yourself, 10% to stay hydrated, to eat regularly, to go for a walk in the sunshine, just briefly, just step outside, do some stretches, just these little tiny pockets in the day. They don't have to be big. That will allow you to serve your family and to serve your loved ones for decades to come. And I think so many of us forget that. And there's a real culture around, I have to give my everything because they need me. But they need you for the long run. And actually they'll be okay for 10 minutes.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't understand the 10 minutes though, because they're screaming, hey, I need your help right now. So we get caught up in that sometimes. But listen, I thank you for coming on the show. Question I have for you, Last, where can they find your 5-day guide? Like I said, I've already downloaded it. I've read it already, but where can they find your 5-day guide? Where can they even find tips and tricks, just how to tweak their day-to-day, thing. So where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 5-day guide, the Burnout Rescue Guide, is on my website. It's called myjoyous.life /burnout rescue, or if you just go to myjoyous.life, it'll be right at the top. And then you can also find me on Instagram or on TikTok under myjoyous.life. So that's where I'm posting tips and little reminders throughout the day, because we all get caught in the scrolling on a regular basis. That's just part of society now.
Yeah.
So my job is to just be there and to give you little nods of encouragement, little prompts to just say, hey, why don't you put that down and ring a friend? Or why don't you step outside? Why don't you put your phone away and just breathe? That's kind of my job on social media is to encourage you to step away from it when you can.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. But I thank you for coming on the show today.
That's all good. Thank you for having me, Maurice. It's been a joy.
Yeah. So, but I can't let you go without me asking the question. My would you rather question. So, would you rather choose 3 doors or a fork in the road? There are no parameters.
I would go with the fork in the road. I love going with instinct and with feeling, and I think in the fork in the road I'd be able to get a sense for either one, and then go whichever way I felt inspired, and I wouldn't look back. I think if I had 3 doors, I'd want to know what was behind each door. But the fork in the road, I can just keep going down that path and accept that was the path that was meant for me, and that was my destiny, and I'm going down that now.
So let me ask you this. I'm listening to your answer. So do you feel as though as you're going down the path, you're not looking backwards?
No.
I mean, because that's the way you're answering.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think, you look back on life and you reflect on the lessons that you've learned and the, burnout for me, this whole business of helping people prevent burnout has come from the life lessons that I learned the hard way and a desire to help other people not repeat that. But, I don't think about what would have happened if that hadn't happened to me and if I'd gone the other fork in the road and kept running my other company. That's not something that I spend time thinking about because this is where I am now.
I appreciate that.
I'm luckier for it. Like I'm
Right.
grateful for it.
Well, I like that. I like that. And I hope that, I mean, so for me, what you're saying or how you're saying it is living life without regrets. You know, hey, like you said, I'm not looking back. I'm going to keep it moving. I've learned from that situation. Let's not hold on to the past and allow that to, because sometimes holding on that will burn us out. Most definitely. You know, so no, but I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you answering the question for me.
Of course. Very happy to. Thank you, Maurice. It's been such a joy.
Sure. Thank you very much. And thank you for listening to That Will Never Work podcast. And I will talk to you a little later.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Chisholm Group LLC and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work, or will it?